Welcome to our podcast. Today we've got a really interesting discussion around prisons and in particular men who are in the female estate. And we have with us to discuss all that is Starmer, who has first-hand experience of being in prison with men. And so we're delighted that you are here to join us, Starmer. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's great to have you. And we also have Anna with us as well. So hello, Anna.
Hi.
So let's just get started, will we?
Yeah,
sure.
So Starmer, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Of course. So I have 4 children, 4 sons. I am 40 and at the moment I wasn't working after having my youngest child because I was quite unwell. Since the birth of him, it was very traumatic, so I was really unwell. And just as I was starting to feel a bit better and wanting to get back to work, I learned about all this nonsense with gender ideology, etc., and decided, especially with the women's prisons, and just decided, no, I'm actually going to focus on this because it's really, really important. So at the moment, this is all I do. I just cook, clean and fight with people.
Can you tell us a bit about how you ended up in the prison estate on remand?
Mm-hmm. So if you're on remand, obviously you haven't been tried or sentenced. And I was out with a friend and I think we went out quite late, maybe about back at 8-9 o'clock at night. So it was a Thursday night. Went out for a couple of drinks, and when we got into the pub, there was already 2 men there sitting at the table next to where we were sitting, and they didn't have an accent from round where we were from, and they had on like high-vis vest and rigger boots, etc. So they were obviously workies and had been in there maybe since they finished work. So that was fine, but they just kept with the leery comments. They were quite drunk, and the over-sexualised comments, just the usual. Excuse me, sorry. Anytime you were going to the bar or going to the toilet, they're trying to annoy you and touch you up. So when we were leaving, we left the pub, and as we were leaving, one of them had actually felt my backside, and the friend that I was with, she had said, he's just put his hand up my top. There was 2 of them. So at the end of the day, that's technically a sexual assault. So
absolutely.
But I think women are just so used to it. It's just, you're used to getting these things happening to you when you go out in a pub, and it shouldn't be like that, obviously, but you just kind of brush it off. But at the end of the day, when it comes to it's sexual assault when it comes down to it at the end of the day. So
absolutely is.
Yeah, so I shouted at one of the guys, and my friend, she's shouting at him. We're having a conversation, but these guys were just, they were tall, they were laughing in our face, they were drunk, they didn't think they'd done anything wrong. So I think, I can't remember, there was a kind of, I can't remember if the words were, I'm going to, any more of your cheek and I'll take you round the corner and rape you. It was words to those effect.
God, how awful.
So, so I'm like, I don't think so. I could probably kick your head right off, something like that, right? And because I was a dancer and stuff, I'm very flexible. So I'd kick the height of myself to can I be no,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was a fight or flight or whatever. But anyway, they were just laughing at me. And I think this sounds as if it took a long time, but it was quite quick,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So my friend had, she's got I think she's trying to grab a hold of him. And he's ran away, and she's got this high vis, you know, it's because it's just one of the wee vest things. So she's got this high vis, and honestly, if you could put a theme tune to this CCTV, which I ended up seeing, it would have been like the Benny Hill show, you know. She's swinging the high vis about, he's running around the car, right? I'm trying to grab her, right? And it was just like, and the guys are just, you know, taking the absolute piss out of us and whatever. So anyway, the police come and the two guys run away. So they run away, that's fine. And then the police said to my friend that she was getting a £30 fine for engaging in a fight in the street or breach of the peace or something like that.
God.
So I've obviously said to the police, hold on a minute, why is she getting a £30 fine? I said, we've just been sexually assaulted. So he wasn't having any of it. And it's just the usual, you know, if you don't shut up, you'll be getting done with a breach of the peace. You don't shut up, you'll be getting arrested next. Not usually in such nice words. So I'm like, this has really got to be a joke. You know, this cannot be happening. And I know people will say, oh, you shouldn't argue. I don't know anybody, you know, the police are supposed to protect us. I don't know anybody who thinks it's that they would stand there and be accused of something that they didn't do and just say, right, okay, put the handcuffs on me and take me away. Like, that's just, if anybody thinks that they would be in that situation and do that, then I'd like to see it. But so because I was arguing with them, I was getting arrested for breach of the peace. So they arrested me, and so obviously they arrested me and then basically made up a load of nonsense. I had bit them, I had assaulted them. There was no marks, there was no evidence, there was no anything. It was just a lot of nonsense. So I was then remanded for, it ended up 7 weeks. So that kind of gutted me. Like, I couldn't believe, like, so I was remanded for 7 weeks. Aye, that's how I got there.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the next thing I was going to ask was, how did you feel going into prison? But I think I can imagine, well, I can imagine how I might feel, but how did you feel? I mean, it's just outrageous.
It just sounds all dreadful, actually, Starmer, the whole thing, even before you get into prison on remand, you know, you've just been treated so badly. It's just, must have been just shocking on so many levels for you.
And like you say, by the people who we expect to protect us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry, I get so emotional when I talk about it.
Well, I'm not surprised because, do you know, that's such an awful, awful thing to have happened to you. You know, that someone's actually assaulted you and you're the one who ends up in prison, and it's unbelievable, really. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. that would happen. And I suppose what it shows is that you know, that the police really aren't that good at protecting women, are they?
No. We've seen a lot of evidence of that.
Absolutely, far too much. But yeah, so going into prison was just horrific. I had to be taken to, so I had to go to Cortonville first. I think everybody goes there, so that's a women's prison, and it's a new one, so it's quite up to date and everything's new. But
just take your time. It's okay.
Sorry.
No, don't apologise at all.
Don't apologise at all. Yeah.
But so when I went there, it's 2 to a room. So I was put in, I mean, getting there is horrible. Once you get in there, I mean, I was having a total panic attack in the car. In fact, I can't even remember getting to Cortonville, to be honest. I think I had to be taken privately because, you know, I was just in such a state, being locked up in this small car van. But I remember getting there and I was actually on my period. And so when I got there, I had to be like strip searched, just trying to remember exactly what happened. So I had to be strip searched. And it's quite embarrassing because I'd been in the cells before that, and that I normally wear Tampax, so I was in the cells. They give you a what do you call them? Sanitary towel. Sorry, I was going to say something else there. A sanitary towel. So I don't normally wear them, right? So you go in and you have to get strip searched, and it was embarrassing enough being strip searched, but then you're standing there with this big sanitary towel on, like, and I'd never like had to do that before, so I was just like, oh my god, what's happening? And and then you get taken in.
And it is a very, very horrible thing to happen to you. I would absolutely agree. It's so humiliating.
And that's what worries me now. And it worries me now about these men who can say they're women doing it to women. But so, and then the doctors, you know, I was really mentally ill since having my baby. So I was in mother and baby unit with him for 3 months. So being away from him, you know, that was like the first night and stuff, like I wouldn't have spent with him. So I was just in a state, and it had taken them a long time to sort my medication to the point where I would stop trying to commit suicide, because I was just constantly trying to commit suicide. And so they eventually got it to where I was kind of stable. And when I got in there, you know, the doctor, they call him Dr. Death apparently, but he basically took my medication off me that could only be prescribed by a psychiatrist and changed it to something like totally not what I needed. So I had like I think it's an antipsychotic, and he just basically changed it to like a little propanolol thing, like, and he had no right to do that, no anything. I was in the place, couldn't tell you how long. So I was starting to like have withdrawal symptoms and stuff because you can't get your medication. And then I was locked up with a girl who, because I don't take drugs, right? So I've never done anything like that really. And so I was locked up with a girl who was addicted to a lot of drugs, and especially crack cocaine, she told me. And I'd never really seen anything like that or been around that. So it was a shock to see this girl, you know, going through this. And it was just such a shame to watch. And I was just a state. I just didn't know like what was happening. I was locked up with someone who was withdrawing. I was withdrawing from my actual prescribed medication. I was just like crying. I just didn't know what was happening or why I was there. It was just a nightmare.
It sounds just awful for you, absolutely awful. And then I suppose on top of that, to be faced with men in your spaces must have been just... Well, I don't know that I could think of the words for how that must have felt for you.
There wasn't any men when I was in Cortonville, so I was only in there for 2 nights because you get put in there for the weekend, and then then you get told what prison you're going to. So I was taken to Gateside Prison in Greenock, which I was happy about because it's the nearest to my kids and my family and my friends. So as much as you can be happy about moving somewhere, it was the closest place I could go. So so that was another drama trying to get me there with the panic attacks. But yeah, when I got there, I got put into a room, a cell, and I think I was in it a few days anyway. And it ended up it was a condemned cell that I was in. So they had to move me, but that's how bad it is in Gateside. It's so old. Like I think it might be the oldest prison in Scotland or something. It's terrible, but yeah, when I walked in there, I was not expecting to see 2 men. Like I wasn't prepared for that at all. Like there was no warning, nobody tells you. Like I didn't have a clue.
That's what I was going to ask you, if they told you or if you just became aware by meeting them.
I just became aware by seeing them. Like, and I actually at one point thought I was hallucinating because, like, it had been such a traumatic experience, like from going out for a couple of drinks for my birthday to be ending up like in one cell and then into Cortonvale and then down to Greenock, thinking, and then I'm like, I've not had my medication, I haven't slept, like I haven't ate. I thought, I can't be seeing this right, like it can't be.
So when you did realise that there were men there, what did you do? How did you?
I honestly like froze, and I was just like, my heart was like pumping out of my chest. Because one of the guys was, honestly, he must have been about at least 6'3", and he was really like a big, heavy, like overweight man, and didn't wear any makeup, didn't look anything like a woman, didn't sound like a woman. He didn't take, excuse me, sorry, I know this now, because obviously I was in there for 7 weeks, but no hormones. That's why I knew he was a man, because there was nothing feminine. They didn't take any hormones. They had no surgery, no GRC, no, the girls, like we either wore our own clothes, or some of the girls obviously didn't really have their own clothes, so they wore prison uniform, which is like light grey jogging bottoms and like a red jumper or a red polo shirt. And this guy was standing there with like big black boots on, big black tracksuit bottoms and a black t-shirt. Like he was just a man mountain. Like, and the other one was the same, no GRC, no surgery, no anything like that. But at least sometimes he tried to wear some makeup. I think he was just scared, like, and he would try to wear some makeup, and he was, say, more feminine, but he was still a man. You could tell he was a man. Do you know what I mean? But at least he put on some women's clothes sometimes, or a bit of lipstick. But they were both men, and one of them, people don't really like to tell you what they're in prison for, so they'll really tell you like a lie, or they might tell you the truth, but they'll usually either tell you a lie or they'll tell you like a really watered down version. So one was in for murdering somebody, so one was in for murder, and one was in for domestic abuse against his girlfriend. Now, if he's telling me he's in for domestic abuse against his girlfriend and he's been put in prison for that, and then it's probably more, but I didn't care to speak to him to find out. But at the end of the day, they're both really violent men with no GRC, no nothing. And it was just, I mean, there's no separation, there's no, in Gateside, so it's not, you don't share a cell in Gateside, so you have a cell to yourself. So at least you have that. You don't need to worry about it when you're sleeping. But they don't have showers in Gateside, so inside your cell. So you have to go to the communal showers.
Right.
So everybody just showered at the same time, and you have to request a shower, and it's at the same time or same 2 times every day. So I think if you're a worker and you work in the prison, you've got a wee job that you get to shower after work, I think, maybe, or they get to shower in the morning before work. And if you're not a worker, you have to wait until later on. So there's like 2 times you can shower, but it doesn't matter, we all shower at the same time. These men aren't treated any different, they're treated like women. And so when you go into the shower cubicles, it's like obviously a brick wall along the back where the showers are, and then a little kind of wall at the 2 sides of you, but the front, all the front's just shower curtain. So there's no privacy, there's no safety, there's no anything like that. You come out your shower, you're coming out naked, or you're putting your towel around yourself, whatever, and there's razors, you know, you're like shave your legs and stuff. Like it's just very open. You've not got the safety of showering in your cell.
Right.
And even if you're showering in a block, there's no door there, there's no cameras either. And, you know, the prison officers aren't, you know, in the shower block checking, like, you know, they'll obviously be keeping an eye.
Yeah, so did you experience having to be in the shower with them, or were you able to do times when you weren't actually there at the same time as them?
So I was quite lucky that I didn't end up having to shower at the same time as the men. And I was also quite lucky because in Gateside, in the women's section, there's 2 floors. So I think there's like 25 women in the bottom and 25 women in the top. And so there's like one set of showers in the bottom and one set of showers in the top. And I think there's only 3 showers in each, you know, so there's like 6 showers for 50 women. And because the 2 men were actually accommodated in the top level and I was in the bottom level,
right.
You can use, you know, either, because obviously you get 50 women trying to get showered, but I was lucky that I didn't have to go up there and shower at the same time, and none of them were down showering at my, you know, my bottom level where I was. But they do like to larp about in their towels on their heads like women, and larp about in, you know, just a towel and all this stuff. And that you can't really kind of get away from, if you know what I mean, because especially like you have to go upstairs to get laundry and get bed sheets and like clean uniforms and stuff. So you're going, like, there's many times I saw them larping about because there's only certain times you can get out your cell. There's only we were locked up a lot of the time for about 23 hours sometimes. So you literally have a small amount of time to get washed, get up, get your bed sheets, get back down. So it's not even as if you could say, well, just wait until you don't have the luxury to do that, you know. So it's impressed on you whether you want it or not. And I didn't know any time I was in the shower whether one of them was going to turn up to my cubicle block and shower. The point is you don't even know either.
And the women you must have been so scared actually with them, you know, that worry and anxiety. Are they going to be in the shower? Are they going to be, you know, larping around in their towel? Are they going to be, what were the prison officers saying about it?
I mean, I was terrified. Like, I've never even had the coil or taken contraception. And I actually, when I was in the prison, went and got the coil fitted because I actually was terrified that one of them was going to rape me. And I just thought, what would happen? Like, what would happen? Like, you know, and it sounds strange. People will always say, how can you jump from, because a man pretends he's a woman or thinks he's a woman means that he's a rapist or whatever. It's like, because there's men and there's women and they have 2 totally different criminal behavioural patterns. And I've been unlucky enough to experience a hell of a lot of male violence since the day I was born from a hell of a lot of different males. So at the end of the day, he is a man and he's in here for a violent crime. And I don't really care what he feels like. So that doesn't process through my brain. I'm just on constant high alert. You know, there's people like me, like people in there with like CPTSD, you know, high levels of domestic violence, child abuse, sexual abuse. You know, they're supposed to be treated in a way where they have their dignity and their privacy and their safety, and taking a trauma-focused approach in how best to basically, I mean, these women were supposed to go to prison to be rehabilitated, apparently. Not going to rehabilitate a bunch of women who are traumatised, usually their whole life's been punctuated by male violence, and then put 2 massive criminal big men in there. And it, you know, the women were, and you're not allowed to, you know, if you call them a man or if you say, and not even in a, you know, in a nasty way, like in a accidental way, because it's a man standing there, you know, and one of them like had a name that could be used for a girl or a boy or a man or a woman. So it made it even more difficult when they look like a man and they also have a man's name, and you'll be like, and if I had to, because when I was working in the prison, I had to work with one of the men. So, and there was loads of sharp tools because it was in the salon. So there was like scissors and stuff. And I would maybe say like, oh, somebody would say, where's so-and-so? And I would say, oh, he's over. And the next minute I'd be like, because they would literally like, you know, because a lot of the women were terrified, but a couple of the women that worked in the salon were like really friendly with, but they were lifers as well because they had committed murder. And so it was almost as if the people that were in there for a long time, so those other two women that worked with him kind of really backed him up. And so, and men, obviously, as we know, can be very like that, and women who are vulnerable to that can be very, you know, so he kind of very much had them, you know, under his wings. So I actually stopped working there because it's terrifying, because to say the wrong pronoun, to say, you know, he or him or anything, like you're just the way like we're finding it now, to, you know, anything's transphobic, anything you say. So it got to the stage where you were scared to say anything, and the prison guards, as much as you could tell, they did not agree with it and didn't you know, they just knew it shouldn't be happening. They couldn't say anything about it or do anything about it. And I could especially see the females who, because in prison you get frisked a lot, like you get frisked a lot, just moving from place to place, you know, all the time. And so these female prison officers, sometimes very young women, you know, having to frisk this big man mountain, and you could just see they were like totally uncomfortable and just, but if we said anything, you know, it does affect you, because they will do their job and they will write you up, and you will be put in your cell, or you will have privilege taken off you. You can be charged. Obviously, you can still be charged in prison. You know, you don't have to be outside. You can accumulate criminal charges in prison. So, but I think one of the scariest things as well is that, you know, you'll be moved, and it's one of these things, they're so protected that if one of the men started a problem, it would literally be the woman that was moved. So even if he had started anything with me, which is why I tried to stay away and left the job when I was in the prison, I can guarantee you I would have been the one who was charged and written up, and I would have been the one who was moved. And I really wasn't willing to move possibly hours and hours away from my children, because it would have I wouldn't have been able to see them, and I would have literally been suicidal. I don't even know if I would have handled. I just don't know what would have done. So at the end of the day, you're creating a cast, or you know, of people that just cannot be even. They're untouchable.
They are.
You'd
And
already,
sorry, Anna, on you go.
I was just going to say, you'd already taken the fall for other men's bad behaviour.
Yep.
Then they're expecting you to do it again.
Yep.
It's just, and I'm pretty sure that people listening will find it really hard to believe that we are actually, you know, in this day and age, you know, putting men into women's prisons. It's actually against, is it the Geneva Convention, or one of the conventions, that it's, you know, you shouldn't have men in women's prisons. It's so hard to kind of get your head around, isn't it?
I mean, it's just totally wrong. At the end of the day,
Absolutely.
you know, you have a man there and you have a woman there, and men and women are segregated for very good reason, especially in prisons. And at the end of the day, you know, gay men who are very vulnerable do not get put in the women's prisons. Young men do not get put in the women's prisons. You know, disabled men do not get put in the women's prisons, who are far more vulnerable than these two men who were in my prison. Absolutely. So, you know, I don't understand why as soon as a man says he is a woman, you know, without any, even with a GRC, I mean, I'm not interested, I don't care, it doesn't change anything for me, but without any safeguard at all, not even an attempt, do you know what I mean? You know, just here's a male domestic violence person, you know, here's a big domestic violent male, and here's a male who murders people, and they think they're women and they'll be scared in the men's prison. So we'll just put them in here with all these women who most of them are in there for things that are not violence related and usually driven by men because of the sort of lifestyles that they lead, you know, with drugs and things like that, that they really obviously need help. And then to put them in here, and especially when they're on drugs, because, you know, in the men's, there's a lot of drugs in prison, and in the men's prison, they find it a lot easier to get drugs sent into them and stuff. When these women, it's a women thing, right? When these women are put in prison, they usually live a kind of lifestyle like that, and they have a partnership like that. So when the man is in prison, the woman will visit the man, and she'll write to the man, and she will phone the man, and she will send the man clothes, and she will go to court, and she will send the money, and she will do everything. When the women are in the prison, the women get nothing because the men don't visit, and the men don't send money, and the men don't phone, and the men don't do anything. And one will be because either they just can't be bothered, and two, because a lot of these women are the ones who feed in the habit for both of these men. So if you then put a man in these prisons with these women, he's also then going to have a lot of power, especially if he can have access to a lot of women who are addicted to drugs and very, very vulnerable. And these men find it a lot easier to be providing these sort of things. Like, that's one thing that people don't necessarily think about, other than apart from the assaults and the rapes and the whatever. And as I've said before, it doesn't matter if this person does not have a penis, doesn't matter if they've their hands and legs cut off, and I don't really care. Like, women still deserve not to be walking on eggshells, not to be traumatised, not to be worrying. They're put in that prison for their punishment and to be rehabilitated in the hopes that they will come out into society and be a better neighbour to the people whose communities that they live in. And to put men in there, to me, is just absolutely evil. They only care about these men's feelings. And I mean, at the end of the day, they can't even be properly assessed because there is no, they can't be properly assessed to go into that female prison because there is no offender, like the offending, the checklist or the risk assessment, sorry, for these male offenders when going into prisons. They can't use that checklist for these men coming into the female prisons because they have to be classed as a female, and so no such risk assessment exists.
Yeah, and also when they actually determined the policy that they would do this, they didn't actually think about the impact that there would be on women at all. And it's shocking on so many levels. What do you want to see happen? What would you like to, how would you like this to be resolved?
They need to get every single man out of every single prison in the UK ASAP. I don't care how they do it, and I don't care how much money they have to spend. The government will find things that they want to find things for. And at the end of the day, I mean, we should be, I've said this before and I know it's a quote, but it's, you know, along the lines of, we can treat a society or judge a society by how it treats its most vulnerable people, okay? You've got the most vulnerable people, you've got these women in a prison, they don't have any choice to leave, they can't leave, they can't do anything. And so you're literally feeding these women up to predators on a platter, and there's nothing that they can do, and they can't speak out about it. And at the end of the day, it's got to be against some sort of human right. And as much as you know, if people believe that trans is a thing, and you know, these men are really trans people, then they need to be accommodated in the men's wing somewhere. If they can't be with the men, then they need to have special provisions then to keep them safe, because at the end of the day, we're talking about safety here, right? So the men are in the men's jail to keep, to keep them in with the men, and the women are there obviously away from the men to keep them safe. So to put them, to say the men aren't safe and with the other men, then does not make sense to put them in with the women. So in order for everybody to be safe, the women need their own spaces, get the trans people their own spaces.
Yeah.
Stop using women as the human shield.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Starma, that has been just so courageous of you to talk to us and share your experiences with us. I'm absolutely kind of overwhelmed by them all, and I guess I it's hard to imagine really how awful it's been for you, but so courageous to kind of continue to speak up about it. So thank you so much for sharing your your experiences and thoughts with us.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing it.
No problem. That was a good few years ago. That was my first and last time there, and I just promised that I wouldn't, I promised myself I wouldn't let these women down, and I didn't know how to do it. So to come out and find you guys already there and doing it was just, amazing for me. And Rona Hotchkiss was my governess in Gateside, and she's just amazing inside as she is, outside. So it's great.
Good, great. Okay, thanks so much